This one's going to be a pretty good one. Do genetics play a big role in muscle gains? If yes, can you overcome it? And so I'm assuming we're coming from the stance of having he's already answered his question. Well, if yes, right? So I'm assuming you come from a shitty genetic standpoint.
But he might think so.
Yeah, right. You might not be.
So I think this is a great question for both of us. Mm-hmm. Jacob has superior genetics muscle than I do. You're jacked, dude. Your parents are jacked.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
So
we actually had that conversation a few months ago, sitting right here.
Yeah, we did.
My parents. Yeah.
We'll probably. I don't think we posted that episode.
I'll recap it.
Yeah. So Jacob has much better muscle genetics than I do. Mm-hmm. For all I know, though, I'm pretty good with endurance type stuff. Right. I might whoop Jacob's ass in like a 5-mile run just naturally, or like a ruck or hiking. I would eliminate. Yeah. I would dominate Jacob on like a really gnarly hike.
Yeah.
But also, I've got the test done and stuff in my DNA. It's a mixture of endurance and strength.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff works really well for me. My dad, I love the man. Mm-hmm. The dude's 5'8", 5'9", and he has never weighed more than 145 pounds.
Yeah.
He's like 5% body fat, but like, the genetics just obviously aren't there. Now, with that being said, every one of my grandparents on the Lewis side, my dad's just like the rut man. But that obviously impacted me a little bit. Mm-hmm. But all my grandparents are 6 foot tall and they're all monsters of men.
Yeah.
So I kind of got a little bit of both. But with that being said, genetics. Yeah, I mean, I struggle with adding muscle more than a lot of people. We're at the Norse compound right now, and there's some monsters in here that they really don't have to do that much, and they make a lot more progress than me, and I'm here busting ass. Now, with that being said, are you working out properly? Are you eating properly? Are you recovering like you should? Are you really dialing stuff in to build muscle like you should? Or are you just kind of half-assing it and being like, well, I just don't have genetics, and using that as a crutch? Because we see this so often that people, really genetics are becoming a crutch now.
Yeah, it's people who if you don't subscribe to proper training methods, proper eating methods according to your goals, and you can't really blame genetics. But I want to back up a second and kind of like give the components of like genetic muscle growth, right? So you have, obviously we can just say, I have better genetics than Andy for muscle gain, right? We can just say that, but why? So there's this thing called limb length, right? So the length between each of our joints determines the length of the muscle head that we have, right? So the origin and the insertion of each fiber will determine how that muscle looks. So if you're just naturally wired to have a long ass humerus, sorry, your biceps probably not going to be looking the best, even if you get massive, right? And then secondarily to that, we are genetically predisposed. So he said he's a mixture of endurance and strength, right? So like we have multiple types of muscle fibers that we have. There's type 1, type 2, and then type 2X is like the most extreme. Genetically, I'm probably have a higher percentage of type 2, which is the fast-acting, inflamed muscles.
Yeah.
The muscles, right? The show muscles. But type 1 predominance is endurance. It's, marathoners. And we have a certain percentage of that at birth.
Yeah.
Based on our genes.
Yeah.
Now, you can train those muscle fibers to adapt and act like other ones, so can you overcome it if you're more of a string bean?
Yeah. To a certain extent.
Yeah, to a certain extent. But you're going to, your genetics are limited. So
yeah, I know there's people listening to this and they're waiting for me to drop it. Can you overcome it with alternative? You can do steroids.
Oh, of course.
I mean, and there's just to be real with you.
Fucking sick.
Yeah. Can you overcome it? You can overcome it naturally. Yeah. Like Jacob, like we were just talking about, you can overcome it naturally to a certain extent. But also, I mean, there are other things that you can take. If you're serious about it, then there's those. But also, I've done this. I used to focus on powerlifting. Mm-hmm. When I first started Norse, I was definitely more of a powerlifter. And I realized before having this test done or anything, I hated powerlifting. It just wasn't my thing. My body did not respond well to it. Those more moderate weights for higher reps, the higher pace workouts, that's my shit. And I was like, okay, my body just responds better to this. So I just switched gears and I focused on shit that worked better for me. And this kind of goes back to question number 1. Is what you're doing really something that you enjoy? Mm-hmm. Maybe switch it up and, if you're not really building muscle that great, you don't have to be a bodybuilder. But maybe you're strong as hell and you could do really good in powerlifting or strongman.
Yeah.
So kind of...
I would say tailor to your strengths.
Yeah, tailor to your
strengths. We all have a genetic predisposition.
That's really the best answer, I think.
Find it and fucking execute.
Yeah, do some self-evaluation there.